Okay, welcome back. So now let's go ahead and take a look at some more things that we can do with images. Okay, so notice we have these three values here. Okay, so this again is the variable of type p image, and it has the value of Tibetan mask. And then the next two here are the coordinates, right? So let's go ahead and just move this over to 100 and run the sketch. See how it moved it over? Okay, we'll set it to 200, run the sketch. Okay, there we go. You can see how my image is starting to slowly move off the screen. All right, let's go ahead and set that back to 0. Okay, and remember that is 0 on the X, 0 on the Y, which is this upper corner right here. Okay, you can use different positioning mode so that the image is centered, but for now, by default, it does it to the upper left-hand corner. Okay, and so the image is upper left-hand corner is assigned to 0 and 0, which is right here. And since the size of this image is the same size as our sketch window, it is covering it perfectly. Okay, now we have these values here. We can actually add two more values in here, and these values will actually change the size of the image. So let's go ahead and make it 20 by 20, okay, and start. And see how tiny it is? Just a tiny little thing right there. So let's go ahead and make it, 220 by 20. Okay, it's nice and stretched now, right? So let's make it 220 over here. Okay, and there we go. There's our image again, but it's smaller. It's 220 pixels by 220 pixels. Okay, and it wasn't perfectly square anyway. So having it perfectly square in here actually distorts the image some, because as you notice, it was not perfectly square to begin with. Okay, so let's go ahead and take that out again, because I actually don't want this image resized yet. I just want the full size image. But that is how you resize. You add two more arguments. So with an image, the first one here is the variable. The second one is the x coordinate. The next one is the y coordinate. The next one is the width, and the next one is the height. Okay? So that's how you resize images. Okay, let's move on. Again, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that because I want it to be like so. Okay, perfect. Now, let's go ahead and just delete everything, and we'll take a look at the tint function. Okay, so I'm going to type in size, and again, we're going to make this 470 by 352 because I'm working with those same images. All right, and then I need to bring in a P image. Okay, and we're going to call the first one Tibetan mask. Okay, instead of image, we're actually going to be a little more descriptive this time. So Tibetan mask, and we're going to say equals load image. Okay, and then we're going to call on that Tibetan mask JPEG. Okay, dot JPEG. Okay, like so. Let me make this a little wider so you can see everything together. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay, now we did this a little bit differently this time, right? Last time we just called it image, right? And then we were done. And then in our draw block, we said image equals load image equals Tibetan mask. We're doing it a shorter way right now, just because we're not going to use a draw at all. Now, we have to do the same thing again, because I want to call in another image. So let's call in P image again, and let's call this one seashells, okay? Seashells. And we're going to say seashells equals load image. Note the camel casing there again. Seashells. I believe that's what that image was called. Seashells.jpg. Okay. All right. And also note that you have to have this in double quotes on both sides. That you have to have the quotation marks there. And make sure you have your file extension and make sure it's right one. If you pull in GIFs or PNGs, it's going to need to be GIF or PNG here. Okay. So let's go ahead and set the background now. Okay. So the background, just like we would do something like this and you'd expect the background to be black, I'm going to actually make the background seashells. Okay? Nice and easy, right? And in fact, let's go ahead and just run the sketch. There we go. The background is now seashells. And remember, the background image has to be the same size as the sketch window. Okay? And you can do that however you want. You can make your sketch window the size of your background image, or just make your image the size of your background window, or resize your image. Whatever you want to do. Okay, so now what we're going to do is tint. Okay, and just like when you're working with color, and you can add, different arguments, You have those multiple spots for values, like 1 spot for grayscale, 3 spots for RGB, 4 spots for RGB and alpha channel. When we use tint, okay, tint can actually take one argument right off the bat, and that will affect the brightness, okay, or we can add more. Okay, so let's go ahead and try that. All right, so let's go ahead and overlay on top of our background here the Tibetan mask, okay, and we'll give it full brightness at first. So 255, full brightness, okay. And again, if you're not sure what the syntax is, right there, find in the reference, it'll totally lay it out for you. Everything you need to know right there, okay? There you go. Okay, so tint. And we're going to call in image just like we did before. And we're going to bring in the Tibetan mask, okay? And that's our first, second, and third arguments there. And what's happening there? We are calling in our variable Tibetan mask. And remember, this is a variable. It's not actually the image. It's a variable. And the variable has the value of Tibetan mask. And the variable is a p-image type. Okay, and it's going to be positioned at 0 and 0, which will, of course, put it in the upper left-hand corner and make it the same size of the screen. Okay, so we're going to run the sketch. Okay, and there's our Tibetan mask. Now, what's going on here? We have a background of seashells, and we have a image of Tibetan mask. The image of Tibetan mask is overlaid on top of the seashells. So if I comment this out, and I comment this out, although this one wouldn't really matter if we commented out or not, there's our seashells, okay? Tibetan mask, sitting on top of it. Okay, so we have a tint of 255. Now that is the brightness. That is not the opacity. That is the brightness, okay? So that won't affect the transparency of the image. Just the brightness. For example, let's go ahead and make it 100, and we will run the sketch. See how dark it is now? It's not so bright. Let's make it 22. I can see it, but barely. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see that on a video. I can just see those eyes bugging out there. But and a little bit of maybe that's the chin, some teeth right there. Yeah, but I can't see it too well. So anyway, we'll set that for 255, and that is our brightness. Okay, so when we add one argument, that is brightness, okay? We can add a second argument, okay, and to tint. And that second argument here, we get to work with the alpha channel. So we get to add another value here between 0 and 255, and that will affect the transparency of the image. Which image? This Tibetan mask, okay? So remember, because it's drawing this first, boom, done. Okay, so now it's going down here, and it's tinting and drawing this image. Okay, so let's go ahead and set the opacity. Well, we'll make it 50% opacity, more or less. So 127. Okay, so that's because 255 is full and 0 is totally dark. So we'll go ahead and add 127 in there and get around half opacity. All right, so let's go ahead and run the sketch. Okay, there we go. Now we have our Tibetan mask. And it's actually 50% opaque, and we can see our seashell background underneath, all right? So that's how you work with multiple images in processing and control the transparency and, of course, also the position. For example, if I made this 110, it moves it over, okay? And we'll set it at 0 again. Okay, there you go. Now, so one argument, brightness, 2 arguments, brightness and transparency. Let's add some more and see what happens. So 3 arguments affect the brightness of the red, green, and blue components of each color. All right, so let's play around with that for a little bit. Okay, so 0, 200, and 255. I'm working in RGB colors now, okay? And let's run that. Okay, so now we've tinted the mask. See that? And of course, if I do 255 here, 0 here, and 0 here, red mask. Okay, red mask. So 0, and then we'll make this 255 and run the sketch. Green mask. Okay, and of course, the same thing will happen for blue. Okay, kind of being redundant here, but why not? So we got a dark blue mask that time. And let's go ahead and change 2 of these values like that. That way we can see it a little better. Okay, so there's our mask. So 3 values here will give us control of the RGB tint of our images. So now we can actually control our images, control the color filter of our images. Okay, so with just this little bit of code here, we can pull in 2 images. We can control the color, control the position. Okay, and how we're doing that is we're bringing in variables of type p image and then giving those variables a specific value. In this case, we are giving it the value of seashells. All right? Okay, let's go ahead and add another argument to this. That's right. So if we add another one, we get our alpha channel back. So I'm going to do 127 again for 50% opacity. And there we go. We have our green Tibetan mask, and it is see-through, and it is sitting on top of our seashells. Okay? Okay, so that is the basics of images right there. Now, again, what we did is we made a static sketch, right, where there's no setup and there's no draw. We've just declared the size of our window. We've brought up these variables of type P image, and we've done some tinting and some basic overlaying. We learned a little bit about how you can position and resize your images, all right? Where things get more exciting is when you do these things inside of the draw block, okay? So we set up and actually have a frame-by-frame animation using images, okay? And that's what we're going to do in the next video.